What are we talking about today, Matt?
We're going to start with a general knowledge quiz.
Oh.
Are you ready?
Oh, yes, I'm ready.
I haven't thought of the questions. I'm going to make them up as we go. All right.
Okay.
Name someone who governed France.
Okay. Just someone who governed France. The Sun King.
Oh, who's that?
Louis the... Louis
yeah.
the 13th.
Thumbs up.
Louis the 14th.
Hey!
Oh, I got close.
Dude, that's really good.
Okay.
That was really good. I expected you to go with Macron or Napoleon, or you went like old school. That was great. No, that was great. I like that one.
I read the book about Marquis. The Marquis, you read the book.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sure.
What's the capital of Norway?
Oslo.
Very, very good.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing about Oslo is there's a really interesting port there, and they have this really big fort right at the, like where you have to go this way, and they've got these huge guns there. It's really cool. I've never been to Norway, but I know how to say cock and fire in Norwegian.
How do you say that?
Koke Fire.
Well, I think I can remember that.
The only Norwegian I know involves machine guns. Don't worry about why. Is that general enough knowledge?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's working. No, this all fits into the plan.
Okay.
What's the square root of 81?
9.
What is the fourth planet from the sun?
Earth. Wait. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. Mars.
What are the moons of that planet?
Phobos and Deimos. Some people say Phobos. Phobos, Deimos.
Yeah, I think I just realized I say that wrong too. How about that?
I don't know how to say it. I see it written a lot. So, yeah, that's it.
When people make up a fake book of the Bible that sounds like it would be in the Bible, but it's not, what fake book do they always go to?
Hezekiah.
Oh, that's absolutely true. Okay, that's real good. Which weapon does Leonardo use?
Oh, the swords. Are they called katanas?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's just phenomenal, man. How do you know all that?
Oh, that's a great. Now we're getting to it. So, I don't know. It's just experience, I guess, is one way. I've ingested content over time. Some of it was deliberate, like the Louis XIV thing. I deliberately read a book because I wanted to learn about Marquis de Lafayette. And so I learned about his interactions there. Ninja Turtles, that was me sitting in front of the TV as a kid. The Norwegian stuff, that was me working with a crew of Norwegian guys on a weapon development program. And so it's a combination of going after content and knowledge and ingesting it. And it's also, just things just kind of fall on you at different times as you go about lumbering through the world.
Slumdog Millionaire style learning.
I've never actually seen that movie, but I know enough to know, stumbling through the world, that it's a poor person in India that gets on one of these game shows.
Want to be a millionaire.
Yeah, and he just, his experience tells the story of how he knows the answers.
Yeah. How sure were you of all those answers?
Pretty sure. I didn't know the Louis the 13th or 14th. I knew it was Louis the Sun King. I didn't know what number it was.
I think that counts. I think that's good enough.
Okay, yeah.
But are there any of those where you're like, maybe Oslo is the capital of Norway, or would you say that you're 100% sure on
like, for example, I was trying to recall the capital of Michigan last night, and I couldn't remember if it was Lansing or Albany. I thought it was Albany. Is Albany? That's New York, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was really late, and I was having a hard time, and I was like, I don't remember. So there's a fuzziness to recalling information and facts, and I don't know. It's like the recall is not perfect when you dig into a memory. I think it depends on if we're trying to collect a fact from the deep recesses of your brain, or if we're trying to recall an experience. I don't know where this question is going, but I'm really enjoying this.
That's okay.
Okay, so I don't know how recall happens, but I know that it is not discrete. You know what discrete means? Like, discrete's like it's this number or that number. Boom, boom.
Okay.
There's some amount of fuzziness to recalling a memory. And I don't know what that is.
Yeah, and I suppose memories can be broken down into units of certainty. So like the wholeness of a memory, for example, going camping on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan with my family when I was a little kid. We went to a place called Tequamanen Falls, but I can't picture the falls because I've been to a lot of waterfalls in the upper Midwest, and I know I was there. I got a pennant from there. It was the same trip where we went to Sleeping Bear Dunes. That pennant was orange, and there was another one that was like just the style back then, like mid-20th century tourist, big dramatic block font and like pictures of a guy in like a fishing cap fishing, and it's all a little cartoony. I remember the pennant, but I just, for the life of me, can't remember what those falls actually look like. I saw some falls here in Alabama a while back, and it messed with that memory. It brought it up. Falls on the way down to Georgia that we stopped at. There were just beautiful Clearwater Falls under a bridge. And I remember I got there and my brain kind of did this like glitchy, staticky thing, and Tequamanen Falls popped into my brain. But I know those are in Michigan, but I don't know what they look like anymore. But it immediately, the memories mushed together.
Yes.
And now I still can't remember, just from a year ago, which is which.
Right.
Like I've crammed that into a blank space in my memory from childhood. And so people who think about knowledge for a living, and this is a whole field, just thinking about how you know stuff. Some real smart folks over the last several thousand years from all around the world have suggested that memories are best understood in their most elemental forms. So you can break things down all the way to the smallest level of a memory, and then you can somehow cobble all of those little bits that you still have together into some sort of sense of the experience, the moment, whatever you obtained there, whatever it felt like. But we don't just remember a thing, right? Like I don't remember the trip to Tequamanen Falls. I remember a jillion little things that add up to some sum of that experience. Is that making sense?
1,000%. Yeah. Yeah, there's this essence of a memory. Like there's all these secondary and tertiary qualities of the experience that kind of combine to give you the overall feel, the sense of, oh, I remember that. One of the things that happens to me is when I was really young, I can tell those formative memories, my brain was just welding down memories. I can remember sitting in my bunk bed when I grew up on the bottom bunk. I was probably 4 years old. I can remember I had a quarter in my hand, and I swallowed it.
We shouldn't.
I shouldn't do that.
Did you ever see that quarter again?
No, I did not.
So it might still be in there?
But I remember the time of day because I remember where the sun was. I called my cousin the other day, and I said, hey, you remember your grandparents' house that your parents got married at? Remember, this was before my cousin was alive. He's like, yeah, we used to go out there when I was a kid. And I said, your parents got married in a gazebo, right? He's like, yes. And I said, I have a very, very, very faint memory. I was 4 or 5 years old. I was like the ring bearer or something. I said, I know they tore that house down, but did the gazebo face, and I told him the cardinal direction. I was like, did it face southeast? And he's like, yeah, why? And I was like, because I remember the way the sun was setting on that day. And I did not know that the sun sets in the west, but I can recollect the memory in such a way where the sun was in a specific place in my memory. And the house has since been destroyed. It was in Tennessee. They put a Volkswagen plant there. But like I was able to reconstruct it and gain some facts as an adult from a childhood memory. And I didn't understand what was going on in the childhood memory. Does that make any sense at all?
Yes, it does.
So that sun glint off of my aunt,
yes,
as she's sitting up there getting married, that was like a tertiary, or what is the word for the fourth?
Quadrinary
memory.
It's a quadrinary.
Yeah,
I think that might be it.
Yeah. So these all add together to the memory, but you started by asking me about facts.
Right.
And now you're talking about these fuzzy things.
Well, and you intuitively went to different types of knowledge because you start asking somebody, how do you know something? The most natural question is, what do you mean by know? Right? Like, do we mean Oslo is the capital of Norway and I'm just sure I know that? Well, there's some qualifying questions even to be asked about that type of just propositional fact knowledge. But then there's also, I know how I felt when she said that to me for the first time. Well, that's not testable. That's a different type of knowledge. But you might feel just as certain that you felt this way when she said that to you for the first time as you are sure that Oslo is the capital of Norway. But you see what I'm saying?
I do.
And then there's also the knowledge of who you are, where you've been, memories, things like that, knowledge of the abstract. Are these all the same things, or are there different kinds of knowing?
There's absolutely different kinds of knowing. I'll give you an example. There's the general knowledge that squirrels make nests in trees.
Okay.
And then there's the specific knowledge that there's a squirrel with a nest in a pecan tree in the front yard, and it's on the 7th branch up to the right.
Is it actually on the 7th?
No, it's not. I just made that up. But
that's phenomenal.
That would be that would be an example of specific knowledge, right?
Walden Pond, just looking at squirrels and writing things down.
So you could have general knowledge, like, for example, my son and I were in a parking lot and we were waiting on someone, and I saw a man.
Were you buying another gun in a parking lot?
No, it was not a Wendy's.
Okay.
So
goat.
He popped his hood,
okay,
and there's smoke coming out of his hood, and I looked at my son and I said, "Son, that man doesn't know what's wrong with his car." And he looked at it and he goes, "Huh?" He said, "There's a lot of steam and smoke coming out of it, Dad." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I don't know who he is, but he's not from here, and he's confused, and he doesn't know what a thermostat is." I was like, "You're going to be the type of man who knows what a thermostat is. So let's go over and let's have a conversation with this man, and let's figure out how to get him to his next place." And so we walked over there, and sure enough, it wasn't the thermostat, actually. It was a leak in one of his radiator hoses. He knew that when your car gets damaged and steam comes out, what you do is you pull over, you park, and you pop the hood, and you look at it. He knew that, which is what I knew when I was 16, the first time it happened to me.
How about that? And
my dad pulled the radiator hose off the Chevy 350 and said, "This is where the thermostat is." And the thermostat controls cold water going in, the first time someone gave me that knowledge. And so, yeah, you almost have to be given the knowledge from someone else, or you have to experience it. Those are the two ways that I can see specific knowledge is given to someone.
That's fantastic. Like, we're just conversationing our way right to something people have thought really, really hard about for a very long time, and you intuitively are into the categories like that.
Really?
Is amazing.
What, the specific knowledge part?
Yeah. Well, just how do you think about knowledge in general? So let's just go back to the basic starting question. How do people know things? So you've said experience. Well, yeah, absolutely. The fancy term for that is empiricism. The empiricists would say that almost all or all knowledge comes through experience. Somebody else's experience, and then they tell you, or your experience, you touch the hot stove, it's hot, I'm going to remember that. When the stove is red, it's hot, you shouldn't touch it, it's too hot to be touched. That's knowledge that you could say you are certain of as far as certainty can go. But then you got another school of thought where some folks are more optimistic about what you can reason to, what is evident with a little bit of hard thought, or that is just intuitively evident just by nature of who you are. It's some kind of genetic awareness that is passed down. Like George was just telling the story about the rabbits.
Yeah, so rabbit in the backyard, a mama rabbit and a baby rabbit. He lets his dog out, and the dog runs out, and baby rabbit and mama rabbit sees the dog immediately. The dog's aloof, doesn't see anything, and so baby rabbit sneaks over under mama rabbit. And then when the dog sees mama rabbit, he takes off after mama rabbit, and mama rabbit does a circle off to the right. And the dog takes the bait and chases mama rabbit. and then baby rabbit just sneaks away gently while mama rabbit's providing the distraction. And the conversation was like, when babies come out of the womb, a human baby,
yes,
we just kind of cry and poop ourselves. And this baby rabbit's like 3 months old, and it's like doing subterfuge and like Sun Tzu
SEAL
level
tactics. Yes.
So like that's baked in, I think.
How do it know?
Yeah, how does it know? Like, oh, don't run at the same time mom does. Wait, and then sneak.
Have they run that drill before?
That's a good point.
Maybe, maybe not. Has that baby
Was
rabbit
there a
been
second?
eaten before?
Was there a second baby
Okay,
rabbit?
that's an expensive way to learn, but that's one way to learn. Yeah, some folks would look at that and say there's a certain knowledge that is genetically passed along. Maybe the empiricist would say, well, it's passed along through experience. It just wasn't your experience, and it wasn't verbally passed along to you, but it was the experience passed along somehow genetically or through natural selection. The rationalist, or the person who believes that some things are knowable beyond the five senses, would look at that and say, no, that's further evidence that there is a greater realm of knowledge and reality, and that the human mind, maybe even soul, has the capacity to tap into that and reason through things that simply cannot be physically manifested or experienced in that way. Or even if it could be physically manifested, you can still reason to it apart from physical, tactile, five senses experience.
So when you say empiricist,
Yes.
is that an E or an I on that word?
That's a great question. That is an E.
It is an E. Okay. So I think of empirical data.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Same word.
It's the same word?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what you're saying now is very interesting because there's this amount of hubris that I see in, I'm doing big air quotes, big scary,
Those are big.
big air quotes, science, right?
Was that a capital S?
There was a science. You know, in science, big scary air quotes, we have this this thing where, oh, we know all the things because you don't trust science, you don't know this. And one thing I often think about, humbly and quietly, and I don't tweet about it, is that we do have these five senses that you talk about. And the way we observe the world is limited to the things we can detect. So one of the things I used to always do as a tester, and the whole point is to get to truth, was I would set up a transducer to detect something, a pressure wave or an amount of light or an electromagnetic emission or something like that. But the only way I can interact with those things is through this transducer that I've built or purchased or whatever. The James Webb Space Telescope, it's heavily biased towards the infrared regime because...
Help me out on that.
So the visible spectrum, Roy G. Biv. So the red side, when something's moving away from you because of the Doppler effect, you remember the Doppler effect with an ambulance comes by you? Woo!
Yep.
Yeah, so because of the Doppler effect, things that are expanding away from you, they'll shift red. That's called the red shift. Okay,
I've heard that term.
Yep. So the James Webb Space Telescope, like I'm not sure if all, but massive amounts of infrared detection capability because we are detecting things that are shifted into the infrared spectrum.
Does that leave a red signature, a red trail? Does an object moving away appear somehow red when
Yes.
you're looking at? Okay.
Yes, it does. And so
if I threw a baseball and we were looking at that with the right technology from behind me, and I threw a baseball away from me, the red shift would be visible at that small a scale, or does it take something real big for that to be evident?
it depends on how fast you throw the baseball.
Really fast.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's super.
Have you seen Rookie of the Year?
Oh yeah, that fast?
But like double.
Yeah. We're down a rabbit trail. This is our second rabbit trail.
Sorry, man. You brought up a thing, and I don't know how the thing works.
Well,
so I want to understand your example, so I got to ask a couple questions. Thank you for indulging.
No, I'm more interested in what you're bringing up. So basically, what I'm trying to say is we haven't had the ability to make these type of infrared detectors, and now that we can, we're learning new things. Okay. And so we humans are limited to our empirical data collection by the things we can interact with. And we might not be able to do it with our physical body. I can't detect radar waves with my body, but I can use a radar horn and collect that electromagnetic radiation and figure out, oh, that's X band or C band or whatever the radar band is, right? My point is, there's this whole thing, this whole universe, and who knows how many different things we can't detect. We are limited in our knowledge because we have been pinned to a human body. And I've talked to you about this. I want to go deep into this. Like the fact that I believe my soul is pinned to a human body, there's all kinds of implications for that.
That conversation was brought to you by Texas Roadhouse.
It really was.
I remember that one.
I think about their salads a lot. I do. So anyway, I'm with you. And I'm interested in what you're talking about. So there's general knowledge, there's specific knowledge. We can get there by empiricism,
yes,
which is experiencing.
Yes.
And what do you call it when someone tells you something they know? What is that called?
Well, that would still be empirical data because
it's like secondary empirical data.
Yeah, exactly that. Sometimes testimony is the term that's used. So your sources of truth, the two big schools of thought, and there are shades of gray between them, would be rationalism and empiricism. Rationalism would acknowledge that knowledge comes through the five senses as well, but the rationalist is also very optimistic about what can be reasoned to. The empiricist might allow for some reasoning, but they would say that even the capacity to reason to that is born out of experience. So what seems like true abstract thought is still actually an extension of the five senses. So those are your two big ones. Do you want to take any swings at people who are exemplars throughout history of rationalism or empiricism?
Empiricism, Da Vinci was really cool. Archimedes was awesome. He could also do abstract things. He was really good at math and things like that. I don't know where the abstract takes you.
Well, so math is interesting because it's kind of a foot in both worlds. When we sat in these chairs and you explained calculus to me, the thing I was getting excited about was, dude, this is philosophy. You're starting to introduce me to a different language to think about philosophical ideas than the one I know. So it's very interesting. But sorry, I rabbit trail. I asked you a question and then I went after that.
I mean, the big names. This is your field, not mine. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle.
Okay, so Socrates and Plato would lean rationalist. Socrates didn't write anything, but the most basic theory of knowledge, which I want to bounce off you and see what you make of it here in just a minute, is born out of Plato either reciting or crafting or summarizing some dialogues that as a student of Socrates in the 5th century BC, he heard Socrates have with other people. And so, for example, Plato records a conversation between Socrates and an uneducated slave. And in it, Socrates is trying to demonstrate that through asking the right questions...
The Socratic method?
There you go. Even an uneducated slave can arrive at quality moral reasoning, can arrive at an understanding of truths about the universe and the unseen. And so Plato is a rationalist, like the rationalist, like the father of rationalism, though he isn't really the father of it. He's the big name. Aristotle, his student, so Socrates didn't write anything, but we know a lot about him from his student Plato. They look like they're pretty rationalistic. Plato's student, Aristotle, seems to have differed from his teacher on this point. And we got a whole lot from both Plato and Aristotle, most of which we recovered actually from the Muslim world in the Middle Ages. They still had that stuff sitting around, and a lot of it was lost to the West. So that's a kind of a cool little footnote to history where East and West worked together to preserve important ideas. And then Aristotle, he famously tutored Alexander the Great. So those four are just gigantic names in the history of thought, with the first two being pretty rationalistic. And I don't know if you can say for sure about Alexander. He's not really known for philosophy, but Aristotle being more of an empiricist. And then like the big names in your field, Francis Bacon, he's an empiricist. He looked at the methodology for arriving at truth that had been handed down from the classical world, the ancient world. I was like, I don't know. It looks like they all started with an observation about planet Earth, about existence, and then worked backwards to support it. So That's deductive reasoning. Bacon's big innovation was we need a method to go the other way. We need a system of observation and repetition and duplicatability by which we can start with no assumptions about the world and go and do homework to arrive at conclusions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, scientific method. But so you said, tell me the difference in deductive reasoning and what would the opposite be? Inductive reasoning?
Inductive, yeah.
Yeah, could you just tell me the difference in those two?
Yeah, deductive reasoning starts with an observation and then works to support it. Inductive reasoning starts with more of an open mind and then does homework to try to work your way toward defensible conclusions. So you start with a truth claim and then test it in deductive reasoning. You start with the testing and try to arrive at a truth claim with inductive reasoning. So, for example, in my field, there are two approaches to Bible. One is you start with historic Christian theology born out of the Christian creeds, and then you go to the Bible to see how it supports Christian conclusions. The other is you just start with the Bible and you see what conclusions come out of the text. Obviously, the stuff that I do is largely the latter. You just start with the book of Matthew, then you try to figure out what you get if you just look at the book of Matthew, as opposed to, here are all the things I already think. Let's figure out how Matthew supports them.
That's fascinating, dude. This episode of No Dumb Questions is sponsored by RAYCON. You can get some earbuds by going to buyraycon.com/NDQ. When you use the promo code NDQ on the page, that gets you 15% off. And Matt, they've got several different earbuds you can choose from. They've got the everyday earbuds. Those are my everyday carries. They've got the fitness earbuds. They've got the work earbuds. And now they have this thing called gaming earbuds. I'm going to try that. They have a different mechanical form factor. Looks like it hangs down in that little, what do you call that little slot? You got your ear hole, and then you got the like the little gutter that comes down out of
Is
your...
there a name for the gutter? Your ear gutter? That sounds trashy.
There's
We can do better than that. Your ear sewer? No, we can do better than that. Come on. Come on, something. Your drain hole? No,
Yeah,
we can do better than that too.
No, it's not the pinnae. No, what's it called? The floppy parts of your ear up top.
Pasta?
Yeah, that has a different name. Anyway, yeah.
But I know what you're talking about. Like there's a slot right there, and it just feels like there should be an earbud in it.
Yes.
Yes. Do they? I mean, they got like bright colors and stuff. Do they look like a gaming computer?
You can get blue. You can get purple. You can get gray. And get jet silver. Excuse me, not gray.
Can you flip that around? Let me see the gray.
Yeah, the gray.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's you.
Show me the real vivid one.
Yeah, there's the blue. I'm going to do the blue, and then there's purple.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Camilla would like the purple. I need to get more Raycons. I have a complaint about Raycons. We don't normally do complaints about the products.
Oh, yeah?
All mine get pillaged.
People take them?
Yeah. And by people, I mean the other 4 members of my family.
They just steal them.
Well, I mean, it just kind of happens over time. But I'm down to 1 set. I'm proud to announce I did finally destroy a set.
How'd you do that?
My very first set ever. The 3rd time I ran it through the wash, I finally broke them. Like 2 different times with that
I'm
exact
so
same
proud
set.
of you.
I've been like, hey, like you can even wash these things. Not 3 times. Alert, alert, alert. Do not run them through the wash 3 times.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's just too many.
I'm very proud of you.
Thanks.
Yeah, you've been trying to destroy those for a long time.
I've dropped them in rivers. I stepped on them. Yeah, I finally got one of them to eat it, but it was tough. So I'm in the market for a new pair. The gaming ones look awesome.
Yeah, and the point there is that these things are affordable, and they're high quality, and like it doesn't ruin your week if you lose them. So, I mean, because they're good quality products, but they are affordable so that if you do destroy them, it doesn't break the bank to get another set.
Yeah, it's more like one of the substitute swears when I discovered mine was broken. Whereas if it was a more expensive thing, it might have been like I might have gone
full on.
Yeah, I might not have used a sub. Also, like I travel down here to see you. I can drag these things along with me. You get 9 hours on a charge from the pill, from the pod, 54 hours total. Like I just barely even think about having to recharge them. I like that about them too.
That's awesome. BuyRaycon.com/NDQ, and that gets you 15% off your order.
Let's go all the way back to a question I was asking you earlier.
Okay. The one about the squirrel?
No, I like that question too. How sure are you of all of those things, of all of those truth propositions
Oh, man.
that I asked you at the beginning? It sounded like 90?
Or where are we? Are we going back to, are we talking about knowledge, or are we going back to how memories are written?
We're on knowledge.
We're in knowledge.
Yeah, so those questions I asked you at the beginning, all of which you got right. No, let me ask the question a different way.
Okay.
How do we know you were right?
Okay.
Because I think we both agree you were right. I think the third chair, every one of those that they know, they would say, we agree, you were right. How do we know you were right?
Well, this is Steve Bateman's territory.
Okay.
Our friend Steve Bateman. Yeah.
Your pastor at church.
Yeah.
Who's a philosopher and a very well-read,
Dr.
very
Steve Bateman,
man.
who I've never once heard him refer to his, doctor credentials. But he talks about the difference in historical knowledge and scientific knowledge.
Okay.
I think we just wait and have him on for a whole different thing on that.
Okay.
Because that's awesome.
That is a little different question, I think, because that is really a question of testability and certainty, verifiability. How do you do it? Well, inductive, deductive. I don't know. Maybe that factors in there as well. But how do you know George Washington was the first president of the United States?
Historical knowledge.
And what are the components? Just quickly walk me through it. How would your kid is like, Dad, prove it. Okay, watch this, son. How would you do it?
Well, I'd start with the quarter and say, there's a picture. Maybe go to a dollar bill.
Okay.
And say, okay, we have a record of this.
But it doesn't say he was the first president
right.
under those things.
At some point, we'd end up at Mount Vernon.
Okay, so that would prove he existed, or
right.
It would get us closer.
The Washington Monument.
Okay, but somebody could have faked all that.
Yeah, that's true. At one point, I was looking at purchasing a letter written by George Washington.
What?
Yeah. I was like, man, because there's some website where you can like do autographs of famous people, and Brady really likes autographs. And
dude, if you want stuff like that, just go rifle through some Ivy League dumpsters. I think they're pitching all of it.
Yeah.
It should be free.
Oh, yeah. That was a complex joke. But I saw this letter that George Washington had written to an acquaintance, and he was talking about the, I think it was the performance of his cabbages that year in his garden. Huh. Yeah, I think this was later in life when he was, reclining under the shade of his own fig tree. But I thought it was really interesting. It's those things that are most fascinating to me. We got the big monuments and we got the paintings and all this stuff, but it's like the things these people do when no one's looking, that's what's most fascinating to me about proving the existence of someone. Let me ask you this. So, is it true Socrates, who is the one that was killed in, Don't Disturb My Circles? Who was that? Who am I talking about?
Oh, yeah. Thales?
No.
It's not Archimedes.
Was it Archimedes? I don't know.
Archimedes. I don't know.
Let's find it.
I don't remember. You've brought it up before, and it sounded right.
The story is there's an invading army that comes in. I don't know if they were in Athens. I don't know where they were. But he's sitting there working on a math problem, and he's drawing circles in the dirt. And the soldier comes in and is like, hey, you got to get out of here or something. I'm going to soldier you. And he's like, don't disturb my circles. Like, don't mess with the dirt I'm messing with right now. I'm trying to figure something out. Who was that?
It was Archimedes.
Archimedes. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. Got it. This all registers.
This is in Syracuse?
It is in Syracuse.
Okay. So.
Which was a Greek colony.
Okay.
That was Romified. So it was very early.
Well, so it was a Roman soldier that killed Archimedes?
Yeah, the Romans invaded and conquered Syracuse.
Really?
As part of their larger conquest of the central Mediterranean.
Golly. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm just sad they killed Archimedes. I like that guy.
Yeah, he'd still be around. We could pick his brain.
Yeah, there's a book at the library here, the public library. I went and was, when I was working on my Snatch Block video, I found where Archimedes had used pulleys to pull a ship of war into, like, he pulled an entire ship by himself just by a clever arrangement of pulleys. I just remember thinking, man, that dude was awesome. And this was all written down. Like, this is a historical record. Well, I mean, I guess that gets to your question. How do we know it actually happened?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's interesting to think that this stuff, these were real people. You and I are going to die, and we're going to be forgotten. That's going to happen, you know? And so I think preparing for that well is important.
You know what's funny about that is the same guy who introduced me to this question is also the same guy who introduced me to my wife, is also the same guy who read poetry at my wedding, is also the same guy who introduced me to the idea I was going to die.
Who is this guy?
Freshman year honors philosophy professor Clifford Williams.
Okay.
Interesting cat. Good dude. I met Camilla in his class, first day, first class, honors philosophy. She patted the chair next to me when I walked in. I was like, or next to her. I was like, are you kidding? That's the prettiest girl in the room. Seriously, I'm a 110-pound, still haven't hit any kind of growth spurt. Like, I'll take it. Okay, great. I went and sat by her, and she's like, I don't want to sit by this other guy. Dang it. I can work with that. One day you will bear my children. That's an all the in I need.
Yeah.
And I remember the very next thing that happened, like right after I met Camilla. I'm Matt. I'm Camilla. Cool. Yeah, there's somebody else who wants to sit here. I don't want him to sit here. Okay, cool. The very next thing that happened in my life after that was Cliff Williams gave us a pink syllabus for honors philosophy. And on it were the objectives of the class. One of the objectives is what you and I are talking about right now, to gain a basic function of thinking about human knowledge, how we know things.
Why was the syllabus pink?
I don't know. It just was, and I remember that.
Okay.
I think I could even find a way to verify it. But there were a few other things on the list, and the last thing, the last objective of the course was to prepare the student for death. Whoa. And so it's really interesting to me that you and I bring up this topic in depth for the first time together, and you go right to preparation for death, because that is where Cliff took me the day I met my wife.
Really?
Yep. And I put it on every single syllabus of every class I taught. I think I put it on every syllabus after that. Maybe some surveys I didn't. But the final objective of each course I taught in college was to prepare the student for death.
Wow. That's
I
awesome.
stole it from him.
That's interesting. My wife and I were bickering about something not important the other day, and that's where we landed. That's how we ended it. We were like, we're going to die, and this is not going to matter. And we're like, that's right. Let's just hold each other and just be happy at the moment. And it was good.
That's real good.
It was really, really good.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not going to matter to either one of us. We're just emotionally worked up in this moment, and it doesn't matter, and we're going to die. So, yeah, I love you. We're done with that. Huh. It was great. It was really, really good. Huh. So to prepare the student for death. Let me get back to knowledge. Let me go back to the other direction. You kind of tiptoed around some deep water in the beginning of this recording session here with memories.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes.
How are your memories written, and how are they recalled? Because you said that when you were in Georgia and you saw a different waterfall, it kind of rewrote some of the memories.
Right.
Something you may not have known. There's this guy named Luke Talley. He's here in Huntsville. He is an engineer who worked on the Saturn V rocket.
Okay.
And he worked with a memory core on the Saturn V rocket in the earliest computers. The way the memory works on the Saturn V rocket is you have these little iron rings, and you magnetize them one way or the other. And they're able to hold that charge, or that, whatever you want to call it. It's either a 1 or a 0.
Okay.
But in order to go back to that bit, that physical data bit, you have to erase it in order to read it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the act of reading the memory...
Sorry, I got excited because I see where you're going, and I'm excited. Okay, yes?
So the act of reading the memory erases the memory, and then you have to re-record it. So the way it would work is, let's say there's an 8-bit number, and we've got all these little iron cores there, and we're gonna go ping all the little bits. It's so weird. They're physical iron rings. It's the most bizarre thing to see under a microscope. So you go and you read the polarity or whatever you want to call it, the one or zero-ness of it, the state. You read it, and then you just erased it, and you're like, okay, what was that? That was a 1. Okay, put the 1 back. And that's how it works.
I'd like to think their system was more precise and complex than... Kyle, what was that again? It was a 1?
It's exactly what it was. It wasn't humans doing that. It was a computer. One of the first digital computers did that. Like they flew like some early semiconductor transistor things on that bird. That was really, really cool.
Wow.
You see where I'm going with this? When you recall a deep, deep memory and you pull that back out. So I'm currently working on math for a test I have coming up.
Yes, you are. I saw that whiteboard.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Humbled.
It's very difficult. What is the integral of tangent x?
I don't.
Right, exactly,
I
right? So if you've ever been taught that, how do you do it? How do you get to that? Is it, I don't remember it right now. I do not remember the integral of tangent x. There's a secant squared floating around in my head. There's also the fact I can turn tangent into sine over cosine, and then it might be ln x because you have du over u. So there's all these different things, and that's all fuzzy, and I can't get there. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't just be like, this equals this. Mm-hmm. Like, you probably remember, what is cosine squared x plus sine squared x?
I don't remember.
It's 1. That's equal to 1. There's some things that you can remember that are like identities. Like, we know this is this. It's like a math fact.
You know what? I could have got to that with time.
You could have.
Yeah. I see it now.
Yeah. So it's a math fact. Like, what is 4 plus 4?
I know that one.
Okay, what is it?
So it's 8.
8. Yeah, exactly. You just know it. But there's these other things that I'm hitting my head against right now where I don't know it, and I have to reason to it. But it is a math fact. But there are ways that I can like brute force and like bushwhack through the briars and brambles that have.
Yeah.
Is this making any sense?
It makes perfect sense. I wrote a song that is the book of Matthew. It's the whole book of Matthew. It rhymes. It's quirky, but like it's literally like a learning song that is everything that happened in the book of Matthew with chapter divisions. The idea is, let's just pick one book of the Bible that has the main character of the Bible. It's got Jesus. The religion's named after him. He seems pretty important. Like, there you go. Here's a song, and I'm going to give it to the people who listen to my podcast when it's all tidied up and done so that they can keep this giant 800-episode project we've done together working through Matthew in their hip pocket. I want them to own that book of the Bible. What they do with it, like whatever. Atheists listen. People who believe totally different things than me listen. But just to hold the raw data of that whole book of the Bible at once in your brain, my theory is that should unlock new things. That should provide opportunities for understanding, knowledge, growth, remembrance. I believe communion with God in a way that is new and different and not accessible when you're just taking little splashes and snapshots from the text here and there. I want people to hold one whole book at once. So I wrote this stupid song, and it is stupid. But I can use that crap to get to things that are Bible facts, like this is what happens in the story in this order, but I can't remember exactly where. And so because of that song and because of the amount of time that I've spent working on it, I can, like you, reason back, no, he wouldn't have gone up on that northern road trip, and that I know that's in chapter 15, so it'd have to be before that, so he's still in northern Galilee. Oh, yeah, it's chapter 12. It's chapter 12. I can work back to it, whereas other things, like you give me a quote from Matthew, I'm like, boom, Matthew 5:17, I know exactly what that is, and I can quote it to you. I have that formula.
What is it?
I don't think that I've come to abolish the law and the prophets. I haven't come to abolish them, but to fulfill them.
So I don't know what you call that. There's things that you hold as a fact, and you just have that data, that memory.
Okay.
And then there's these other things that you can reason to.
Yes.
So you have something that's different than me in this regard. You own people's names as facts. You own their names. Like, I've seen you be like, oh, yeah, that's William, or, someone you've met once. You have their name.
Okay.
I don't. I have to reason to their name. I picked my daughter up last night at a pool party.
Now, you've got her name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. So I picked my daughter up last night at a pool party, and I saw the guy that was there at the house, and I knew his name. I knew his first name.
And then you just started mouthing consonants and letters.
I did not know his last name.
And nodded a little bit.
I did not know his last name, and I knew what I called him the last time we were there, and it was wrong.
Oh, no.
I knew what his last name was last time.
How did you find out it was wrong?
Because he told me.
Oh, rats.
So, for some reason, with people's names, I have to make little rhymes and things like that in my head. And it's not because I don't care about the people, because I can tell you what they do for a living. I can tell you that they're very involved in sports with their child, and they're a very good father at this. And, I like the way they laugh when they do this. Like, I genuinely care about the person. So it's not me being like emotionally dismissive. For some reason, just names of humans is hard for me to grasp. That's very difficult for me. And so I have to come up with all these little things. There's a lady at the bank. I called her Brandy incorrectly. And the reason I called her Brandy is because the first time I walked in the bank, she told me her name, and it sounded something like that. And I said, oh, yeah, Brandy. In sixth grade, there was that girl that came over trick-or-treating. Her name was Brandy. And she asked if she could use the bathroom, and she went upstairs and she stole all of our toilet paper so she could go roll the yard with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, you guys should have just given her some more toilet paper.
I know, exactly.
Oh, she was vandalizing.
Yeah, she's vandalizing. And so I was like, okay. And so in that moment, I was like, she told me her name, and it started with a B. And I was like, okay, I'm going to pin this image of Brandy walking upstairs in my old house and stealing our toilet paper. I'm going to pin that to you. And that's how I'm going to rationalize to this. And it was wrong. So now I have this problem where I pinned the wrong thing to the wrong person, and now I have to come back and figure it out. So that's my internal struggle. I have a struggle with that. And it's a limitation, and I acknowledge it, and I see it, and I'm constantly trying to work around it. And Tara is my lifeline, because I'll just text her and be like, hey, this person, this thing, what is their name?
I am my lifeline because I just text me. I literally, after I meet people, I text myself.
Are you about to give me a life hack?
I text myself details. And so like the emergency I need this text thread is with me. I've got my phone up here, and I'm scrolling back to my last text with me. And, okay, my most recent text to me says, NDQ episode on birth with a midwife.
Oh, as a reminder.
It's just a reminder. But the one before that says, I'm not going to say the name out loud, but it says, so-and-so, blue F-150, and the name of the street on which he lives.
Wow.
Because I met him. I will probably never reference this again to recall this gentleman's name. But the fact that I texted it to myself, knowing that's a name I'd like to have, but I didn't interact with him enough to keep it, now I got it. Without checking it again, I've got it. And I've seen him 5 times since, and I've had it every single time. I'm going to change the names here a little bit, but Dave and Candy, building on Kansas City Street, here since a certain year, this job, worked here, and has this job title. I texted it to myself. When I see this person around town again, I'm going to remember, there they are. They're over there. I'm going to go and talk to them. I only met them once. There's an opportunity here to just show them that people care about them and notice them.
Will you pull your phone up?
So then all I do is before I walk over, I go up here to the search function in this text thread. I search within the text thread a keyword related to them, where I met them, what I remember they do for a living, something. And it pulls it right up, jogs my memory on all the things, close the phone, and I go and say hello. Is that cheating? Absolutely. And on the one hand, you could be like, well, that's super disingenuous that you have to do that, and then you try to pass it off like you know someone. But on the other hand, previous me did think you were important enough to make the effort. Like, who cares how you made the effort, right? Like,
right.
I care about those people, and I want them to know I remember meeting you. It made an impact on me, and you matter, and I give a rip about how you're doing. And so if I think I'm not going to remember, I use that text thread with myself, and I cheat. So
that's awesome.
Takes a little bit of luster off of the nice compliment you just paid me. But
no,
that's the truth of the situation.
Okay, so you struggle with it a little bit as well.
Heck yeah.
But you're really good at it. I've seen you recall. Let me put it this way: your recall on names is double, if not triple, the capability of mine. It's impressive.
I don't know about that, but thank you for the kind words.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that is important, and I would like to work on that. That's a thing that I'm trying to get better at. And my daughters made fun of me before, and I was like, "That's fine. You can make fun of me." But
can I give you another tip?
Yeah.
One time I was campaigning for a job.
Okay.
I was being interviewed by 40 people.
Okay.
40 showed up for the interview. We sat in a circle. The people conducting the interview literally had us go around the room and everyone introduce themselves and say a couple things about themselves. It was like a 3-hour interview. It was nuts. I didn't even take the job. They offered it. Didn't take it. They all went around and did this thing. I pictured each person doing something very memorable with someone I know very well who has the same name, a celebrity or an individual. Like the person sitting next to me, I still remember, their name was Robin. It was a lady. And so I just pictured Robin crusading with Batman.
Okay.
Ridiculous.
No, not.
But we got done going around, and I went around and just said, "Cool, it's nice to meet all of you. Let me make sure I've got this straight. Robin, Dave, Carol, Mark, and..."
No, you didn't.
I did.
That is such a baller move.
and that's the moment I got the job.
Yes,
I didn't
it
take
is.
it. But that was it. How did I do it? Well, I can't retain 40 things in a row. I just remembered the most absurd point of connection between them. That's something about what they were wearing, where there was just any point of ridiculous connection between them and something I own epistemologically. Knowledge I'm sure of. I just receptor sighted.
You welded them.
I welded it to something, to knowledge I don't have yet, and it totally stuck.
So, next question.
Yeah.
I'm a squirrel.
Oh.
And I just like, I chase squirrels. Let's put it that way. I'm just...
Sure, seventh branch.
I can just be
Pecan tree.
Completely taken off course in an instant by a crazy thought about waterfalls or whatever. And
like you filming me while we're doing that little video on the beach in Destin or wherever we were, Southern Alabama. And like all your job is to point the camera at me while I finish up this little bit for my channel. And there's a helicopter. And the camera just goes straight to the helicopter.
Did it really?
Yes. And then I'm like jumping up and down, like waving to try to get you back in. We finished the video, and then I think you just capped off the insult to injury by capping me right in the crotch with one of those paddle balls. Like, what just happened? Why do I even hang out with you? Sorry, go ahead.
No, so like
Squirrel.
When you're doing that and you're going around the circle and you're trying to memorize everybody's name and you're like, okay, this person's with Batman doing whatever.
Yeah.
Can you hear what they're saying?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you don't put a lot of thought into it because the first thing that comes to mind is going to be the best. Because, like, you thought of Brandy and the toilet paper.
Yes.
And it welded because it was the first thing that came to mind. Like, whatever's top of mind is what you're holding in that memory access spot. I don't want to have to dive deep into the memory hole and be like, wasn't there a lady named Gladys who my parents knew when they were in college they told me about once? That doesn't do me any good. It's not a robust memory. I don't own that knowledge. I flirt with that knowledge. I need something really concrete that I can grab onto if I'm going to use that trick. So it happens fast, and then you're on to listening. This episode of No Dumb Questions is brought to you by HelloFresh. We have eaten HelloFresh since forever, and they have sponsored this program since forever. We so appreciate them as a sponsor, and we also appreciate the fact that this is a genuinely awesome product that tons of you already enjoy. HelloFresh, Destin, what's a quick rundown? How do you summarize it, somebody, the elevator pitch?
Yeah, you can go to the website and you can choose from over 55 weekly options. They have these pre-portioned meals that they send to your house, super high quality ingredients. You get the right amount of them. They come like straight to your door, and then you get a little recipe card. You can make the meal. So the cooking and the learning how to cook is part of the experience. You're making sauces, you're like sauteing stuff, You're doing all the things that like a fancy chef would do, but you're doing it at your house and you're learning how to cook, which these skills I have learned help you with every other meal you make. So I really enjoy the educational aspect of HelloFresh.
Yeah. And I find that when I go out to eat, I lock in. Like, I got a thing. If we're going there, I get this thing. And that's fine. I like the thing I get when we go to different restaurants. What I like about HelloFresh is that it expands my taste because it just seems very natural to try things I haven't tried before. Also, they're always messing with the menus and doing seasonal stuff, trying new menus for various dietary goals, things like that. Right now, they've got a Taste of Summer series going on. They've got Old Bay shrimp and sausage boil. I don't even know what that is.
You don't know what Old Bay is?
Listen to it. It says Old Bay shrimp and sausage boil.
That's a good, like, it's a spice that you do. It's kind of like a low country boil. You don't know what that is, do you? Shrimp and sausage. They really have that?
Yeah, they have that.
That's awesome.
Family style grilled steak lettuce wraps, also part of the Taste of Summer thing. And so it's just, I mean, you go there and something new is always happening. And I feel like HelloFresh is always pushing me on the food thing, and I like that.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that we make are the tacos. There's like pork carnita tacos. There's all kinds of different things. I'm looking right now. They have a new one. It's a one-pan mango salsa pork tacos. That sounds great with cilantro and sour cream. Yeah, I really enjoy tacos in particular, but they also have really good stuff like the melty Monterey Jack burgers. It's all good.
All this stuff shows up when it's supposed to show up, and so you can also pause it if you're not going to be around for a while. So to try out HelloFresh, you can go to HelloFresh.com/NDQ16 and use the code NDQ16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts.
Yeah, big thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you for supporting the sponsors because that makes all this happen. You're smart. You know what's going on, and we are grateful for your support of the sponsors.
Once again, HelloFresh.com/NDQ16. Use the code NDQ16 and get 16 free meals and 3 free gifts.
You know, you've taught me a lot of things, Melvin, and this is one of them.
It's, you know what? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I've heard that technique before. You're just good at it. You're really good at it.
I didn't know that was a technique. I thought I was making crap up. I'm happy to know that I lucked my way into
it's like memory
something
hacks.
that works for somebody else. Yeah,
it's really interesting. What's interesting about this math I'm doing is I'm 40, and all these people that are doing it with me are 23, 24. Mm-hmm. They're better than me.
They are locked on. They are laser focused on that. And though you are a very competent man, you are not laser focused on this. Your primary objective right now is not
kids
pass those math tests.
Yeah, kids are my primary focus right now. But their minds are better. I can feel it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
Better at some stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But old age and debauchery will, beat youth and skill any day.
That's exactly right.
I found that at a thrift store, cross-stitch, and I got it in the other room on the wall. It's great.
Well done, cross-stitchers. Okay, here's what we've done, though. What we have talked about, both intentionally and accidentally, are different theories of acquisition of knowledge. So intentionally, we've talked about rationalism and empiricism. We've talked about some of the people who champion those positions. John Locke would be another very famous empiricist. His empiricism is noted in his most famous phrase, right? That being tabula rasa. You've heard this one?
No.
What does tabula rasa mean? Do you know that?
Clean slate?
Yeah, blank slate.
Blank slate.
So Locke's assertion is when you're born, you don't have the rabbit intuition. You don't have any abstract knowledge that you can gain. You are a completely blank slate. Your experiences start to etch onto that slate. So he's an empiricist. Very famous one. Whereas a certain other very famous philosopher suggested that, well, what can I actually know? I've got an empirical conundrum here, and I'm going to work my way back to something I can prove.
Descartes?
There you go. Very nicely done.
Yeah.
And he got to a point of saying, I'm not even sure of my own body. My body could be an illusion, but I am sure I'm thinking, therefore...
I think, therefore I am.
Exactly. So that would be rationalism.
It's only one step beyond that to get to moral law, like a true moral code. That's a big anthill.
Well, and there's a reason Descartes informs classical liberalism, which is founded on the assumption that you exist, everyone else thinks, therefore they are as well. Therefore, entirely apart from God, self-ownership is the order of the universe, and morality starts with ownership of yourself and the product of your labor. Not everyone agrees with that, but that's how morality flows right out of that.
I got there differently. I mean, it's Lewis, C.S. Lewis. He talks about the fact that I know there are things that I should do that I don't, and I know that there's things I shouldn't do that I do. Whatever that is, whatever you call that, that's the moral law written on my heart.
Yeah.
Anyways, you were rounding a corner.
Well, and rationalists doing ethics, they were trying to figure that out apart from God in the 17th century, 16th, 17th century. That was a big question. The world's getting smaller. We're getting to know people from all over the world. What if our version of God isn't right? Is there any morality, or is it just whatever consensus or power says morality is? And so a lot of these thinkers during that era of the Enlightenment are trying to say, is there any universal moral law that is hardwired, that is universal languaged into the rules of existence just as they are? And so that's what a lot of those guys are thinking about, whereas Lewis is appealing to not just reason, but also some theistic assumptions to get there, saying these things are here, and I think they're etched there by the maker of all things. That would be his assumption.
The question is, are they etched in the BIOS, the built-in operating system, or are they in something different? Are they physical, or are they something different? Anyway.
And that kind of gets back to rationalism and empiricism again.
It does, yeah.
The nature-nurture thing is kind of a cousin of this same discussion. So we've got rationalism, we've got empiricism, but then we've also really thrown out testimony as a third potential source of truth, whether it's personal testimony, that is accessing your memories and being told by a previous version of yourself that maybe, even had to erase the previous memory to access it. So there's a reliability question with testimony, or testimony external to ourselves. Somebody else saw a thing. I'm telling you, there's a fire 2 blocks over. You can't see the smoke, but that house is on fire. Well, it's testable. But if there's no reason for them to lie, you assume there's probably a house fire a couple blocks over. Nothing to be gained. But still, it's not as reliable as walking over there and being like, that is 1, a house, 2, flames, and 3, it is now. Therefore, that house is now on fire. That's probably the more reliable.
There's another thing. If telling you the information causes pain to the person, then it's more reliable.
Yes.
Which is why a lot of people the early church was so adamant. They're like, hey, this Jesus dude, it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but we're going to murder you. Okay.
I still saw what I saw.
That doesn't change what I saw.
Yeah.
And so that's the historicity of Jesus comes down to that.
You're not wrong. Yeah. So even in bringing that up, though, you're getting into what the stakes of this thing are. When you're a kid and you're 18 and you're maybe taking your first college class and you're distracted because there's a super pretty girl that you want to have kids with someday sitting next to you, it just feels like, this is a fun esoteric thing, and the goal here is get a grade. Like, I'd like to do it well enough that I appear competent to this girl who I like, and I'd like the respect of this professor. I'd like to appear competent to him. Further, this is genuinely fun. And further, I like good grades. And so those are the motives. Then you age a little bit, and life happens a little bit, and memories fade, come, go, rewrite just a little bit. You get lied to. Maybe you look back on a thing or two here or there, and you're like, I'm not even sure I was as honest as I would have liked to have been there. I'd like to imagine myself an honest person, but no, I can think of moments where I could have done better on that in my life. And questions of certainty and knowledge go from being like a fun thing to tinker with to kind of foundational. How do I know anything at all? Let's go all the way back to Plato and Aristotle. There is this very old formula for truth that's been jabbed at a lot of different ways. It gets abbreviated as JTB. If you have these things, you have knowledge. J equals justification. T equals actual truth. Is it real? Belief means some sort of personal sense that that is reality. If you have any one of those things, you don't have knowledge. So if you have just a justification, you could be like, no, I think that water right there, I know a lot of other liquid things. Mercury is liquid. I assume that water bottle there contains mercury. Well, either it does or it doesn't. I could have a justification, a rationale for why I think it's mercury because I've seen liquid mercury, and that's liquid, so it must be mercury. But it's not truth. So I don't have knowledge because I just have this one, I have a rationale, but it doesn't square with reality. Truth can be a thing, like that's H2O, but if I don't know what H2O is, that's a truth external to me and I don't have knowledge of it. It's still true, but I don't know it. And this isn't a question of truth, it's a question of knowledge. How do we know things? Belief. I might believe really strongly that that is water, but it might actually not be water in your water bottle. I don't know that for sure.
What's the difference in justification and belief? I don't, in the JTB, justification, truth, belief. So I think I don't understand the justification part there.
Justification would be a defensible, evidence-based rationale for why a thing is what a certain thing is.
Okay, I see.
My belief isn't empirical. My belief is just sort of an assumption. I don't know. It's in a water bottle that says water on the bottle. I believe it's water.
Yeah.
Also, like
in the past, there have been many water bottles that had water in them. Therefore, it's probably water. So, yeah, that's my justification.
Right. Well, no, that's my belief. My belief is that it's water. My justification would be, pour it out. Let's test it. Like, let's put it under a microscope.
That feels like truth.
We can use electrolysis. And then that gets us to, and then truth is external to my experimentation. Truth is external to my belief. Truth is the reality of it. Is that H2O or is it something else? Truth doesn't, I almost made it sound like a stupid catchphrase that people use when they argue with each other on the internet. But the reality is, in this equation, truth doesn't care about your justification. Truth doesn't care about your belief. Truth just is. So Socrates and Plato flirt with this idea, JTB, justification, truth, and belief equals knowledge. And this kind of carries the day for a really long time. Can you think of an exception to this equation?
Justification, truth, and belief.
What if you had all three of those, but you still didn't have knowledge? Is there a scenario in which you could have justification, a solid rationale, truth, what you think you know squares with reality, and belief, that you assume a thing to be true, you have all of it, but you still don't actually know? Is there a scenario where that could be? Or, if you have JTB, do you have knowledge?
I don't know. I mean, intellectual dishonesty is having truth but not believing or wanting to see the justification. I'm seeing a lot of intellectual dishonesty these days. That's what I'm seeing.
Which is not JTB.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know how to answer the question.
It's okay.
You've stretched me quite a bit, and so it's very difficult for me between the justification and the belief to understand. So I'm going to take this as an introductory course in this concept, and I'll have to go think about it.
Okay. Well, don't feel bad that you didn't have an immediate answer. I don't think I did either when this was brought up with me. But the reality is that any kind of philosophical assertion, just like a mathematical assertion, if you can find an exception, well, it's no longer ironclad. Now there's an exception. It's not a mathematical law. It's not a mathematical rule. There are exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
JTB, this is pretty interesting, has been exposed within the last 50 years, just 50 years, maybe 60, as having an exception, having a flaw. And there are a couple different thinkers that pushed back on this, but it's huge. And I just want to bounce this to you because I think you'll find it interesting. There's a 3-page paper written in the 1960s. Gettier, I don't know, he's a little-known philosopher, wrote literally a 3-page paper on this age-old question of knowledge. How do you know? And in it, he gives an example of someone is looking for a job. He and a rival are both trying to get a job. They both interview for it. And in the course of sitting in the interview room, candidate A looks over and realizes that candidate B just casually pulls out of his pocket a fistful of coins. And there are 10 coins there. And he puts it back in his pocket. So candidate A knows that candidate B has 10 coins in his pocket. Well, a little bit of time passes, and in between things, maybe at a urinal, somebody who was in the interview is like, hey, candidate A, I just want to give you a heads up. The guy with 10 coins in his pocket is getting the job. And candidate A is distraught. Bummer, I didn't get the job. Well, candidate A forgot that he has 10 coins in his pocket too. So candidate A got the job, but he had justification and belief that candidate B was getting the job, and candidate A also had truth. The person with 10 coins in his pocket did get the job. It's just that he got to the truth by accident. His knowledge was not correct.
He had incomplete knowledge.
Or he had overlapping knowledge where more than one thing could have been true, however you want to categorize it. And so another philosopher, Russell, gives the example of a clock. He's like, let's say that there's a broken clock on the wall, and somebody says, hey, what time do you got? And Ted looks at the wall and says, it's 10 after 2. It's 10 after 2. Oh, okay, thanks. Then half an hour goes by, and the person hollers back, hey, what time is it now? Oh, it still says 10 after 2. Oh, I don't know. This clock is broken. Well, here's the crazy thing. Accidentally in this scenario, it was 10 after 2 the first time he looked. The broken clock scenario. He was accidentally right. So he had justification, that is the evidence of the clock, said it's 10 after 2. He had belief, clocks tell time, and clocks tell time accurately. I believe that it's working. It seemed like reasonable. It feels like it's roughly 10 after 2, so it passed the belief test. And he had truth. In the grand cosmic scheme of things, it actually was 10 after 2. But did he have knowledge? No. Well, kind of. Like, that's kind of the question, right? And so these counterpoints to how we have assumed knowledge works for so long.
So that's why every good lie has a little bit of truth in it.
Wonderful take. Yes.
Yeah, because it gets you part of the way through JTB.
Yeah. And it's not even just pure evil mustache stroking badness. It's a function of something that really, in a way, is a mathematical equation performed in abstract philosophy. It's the equation that adds up to knowledge that we're trying to figure out. And what these pushbacks from the last 60-ish years have demonstrated to us is that we don't actually totally know exactly what the formula is that equals knowledge. We mostly know. But I would posit that the question of knowledge, not truth, like I think everybody agrees that there is a truth. I mean knowledge, what you know with certainty. I don't think humanity has solved exactly what the formula is for that yet. I think there's some great theories, but I don't think we know. And isn't it wild that we don't know how we know? I saved all of the JTB stuff for the very end because I knew what it would do to you. Yeah. And you were a really good sport. I saw the
dumbstruck me.
I saw the faces. I saw the...
It's like trying so hard to understand.
I saw the writhing. But part of the reason I wanted to do it, and this is why I want to keep the mics going for a second, is I kind of wanted to take us there to bring us to that point of connection of you're running those equations on the board right now. That's what philosophy does. We're doing math. We're doing equations. We're trying to figure out... Math is trying to figure out these abstractions using forms, symbols, and reliable things, proofs, if you will. We're trying to do the same thing here. We just have different tools because you quantify this kind of abstract thought differently than you quantify numerical abstract theory and thought.
It's a different equation. The Gettier problem. I just Googled it.
Was I close on that?
The Gettier problem is a field of epistemology, is a landmark philosophical problem concerning the understanding of descriptive knowledge attributed to the American philosopher Edmund Gettier. Gettier-type countermeasures, called Gettier cases, challenge the long-held, justified, true belief account of knowledge. Case 1, Case 2. Gettier's 2 original counterexamples of knowledge. Holy cow. That's deep, man.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is that fun to think about, or is it discouraging? Because to me, let me just preface it. I'm not troubled by that tension. I think the overlap between truth and a finite brain is really interesting. In a way, I kind of feel relief that somebody has punched a bit of a hole in the JTB equation, because it means that if I don't know everything, that's okay, because maybe I'm not meant to know everything. Does it make you feel uncomfortable? Does it make you feel relief? Does it make you feel anything to kind of familiarize yourself with this line of questioning?
It doesn't change my human experience. It doesn't change the way I try to access knowledge. It does make me wonder, because I know when I'm at the person's pool party and I'm trying to come up with their name, I know there's a fuzziness there. Mm-hmm. And I guess what you've done with your Batman method
right.
is you've figured out a way to get further down the JTB. How do I say this? I don't have the words. So you're referencing a closer point. How do I say that? You see a thing, you observe it, you figure out that it's true, and then you make a new instance of JTB there that you then reference. It's like you're rewriting the core memory in multiple sources in one location. I'm doing a bad job of articulating this.
It's really good. Yeah.
It's almost like making a copy. You're making parody. You have another record of the knowledge, and then you're able to reference 2 records.
I think all of this comes back to a thing you and I have talked about, like going back to really early in our friendship, that question of threshold of belief. Mm-hmm. Now, belief is not knowledge, but let's just swap out terms. The threshold of knowledge. For Descartes, that threshold was incredibly lofty. Like, my body could be an illusion, therefore I cannot even count the existence of my body as sure knowledge in and of itself. I've got to build that knowledge on top of something else to feel any kind of certainty about that. Other people are like, I don't know, I've never been to Norway. I've never seen Norway on a map, but somebody I totally trust said it's the capital, or it's like, okay, Google, what's the capital of Norway? It said Oslo. Like, it's Oslo. Good enough. I don't need proof. That is proof. It's settled. The matter is settled. In this year, at this time, when I asked my phone what the capital of Norway is, it said Oslo. Behold my phone. That is knowledge. I don't know. That's pretty good. Some folks are going to have a threshold that is very picky and very difficult to satisfy. I think others, practically speaking, are willing to be like, look, if it's more or less overwhelmingly likely, I don't have a percentage. That's knowledge. Good enough.
Those people that I think I want to be somewhere in between. I don't want to be the flippant person that just accepts everything at face value. And I also don't want to be the, well, actually, I think you'll find if you...
It's really funny that it used to just be, well, actually, but then the phrase, I think you'll find if you, it's joined together with that. They've melded into one thing.
Yeah. So, like, I want to be in the middle.
Okay. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, this has gone for me from a thing that you got to learn and talk about to get a grade and impress a professor and maybe a girl, to a thing I really genuinely think about, because knowledge is self to some extent. I wouldn't say self is entirely consumed in what we know, but if you suddenly didn't know any of the things that you know, a whole lot of you goes away. So if a big part of what we do as people is try to understand ourselves and where we fit and why we exist, and if you think there's a maker, and I certainly do, how you connect and how you fit into the bigger story of whatever the plan of the universe and the deity behind it is into, then knowledge is a pretty big factor. Like, what actually is it to know? What does it say about me? What does it say about any potential design that went into me that I know? And then that takes me out to the big question. What would it be like to know all the things, to truly be omniscient as the Jewish God, the Christian God is held out as being, to not have any JTB, justification, belief, no process, just you own knowledge. You don't look it up. You never learn anything. That is the proposition of the truly unlimited God of creation. This question of epistemology humbles me and melts my brain as to what such an entity would look like to truly know. For truth and knowledge to be overlapping circles in the Venn diagram. For me, it's a tiny little sliver in between two circles. For the proposed deity and maker of all things, the circles completely overlap. All truth is knowledge. All knowledge is truth. That's wild. That takes you to some places.